Hello everyone, Turner Burner here with another video for you guys. This is going to be probably the most extensive, thorough Blademaster tutorial you've ever seen. It's not going to cover every single possible situation, but it's going to cover a lot of situations. And the title of this video is going to be the RelaxingKoty experience. The reason for this title is it's going to have a lot of gameplay from him specifically. Actually, it's going to have only gameplay from him specifically because I see him has the highest standard of what a Lonnie player should be. So, just a little bit of backstory before we get into the video. I spoke with Koty, I want to say sometime last year, a couple months before before I did the Escape Marathon. What is it? I forget exactly how we got connected. It was probably through solos because he was still trying to do all the maps without Cole, which he achieved or whatever. And I believe at that time, if I'm not incorrect, it was just me and Commander that did all the Hive solo. But anyway, he's telling me about his channel. Blah 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 blah. We played. I think for the first time for the Escape Marathon. But off and on, we would talk about, Lonnie and different operations, and he would tell me about how Lonnie was in earlier operations and whatnot. But what I'm trying to get to the point is, just for backstory from my perspective, is in Operation 3, when I soloed Lonnie on lethal engagements, at that time, I had two more maps to go, or something like that. So I guess when I met Koty, I wasn't finished quite yet. So anyway, I had two more maps to go. I believe it was Last Stand and The Surge, and I wanted to both do them. At that time, I wanted to do them as Lonnie, because that was my thing. Commander did it all as Cole. I did them all as Lonnie. Blah 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 blah. So, or most of them anyway. So that was my thing, but when Operation 4 started, it basically added another map for me to do called the Malfunction. And one of the perks of being Lonnie in older operations, if you're unaware of, is you are immortal in your ultimate. So that was a big thing, for Lonnie players that were aware of it to get out of certain situations. You could survive popper shots, you could survive salvo shots to the face, and they didn't need to be bleeding. You just needed to be in your ultimate. So I don't know how many players knew that, but that's something I utilized a lot. So I knew that in the Malfunction, you sometimes got sentinels. So I knew being on your ultimate would help you survive that. Now I knew from other players, because I really don't read the gear stuff online. I knew from other players that at that time, from Operation 3 to Operation 4, Lonnie went through some changes. So I wasn't sure what the changes were, and I really did my best to get all the hives done with Lonnie before those changes. But and I'll never forget this, when a sentinel downed me in my ultimate. I was so angry because I was taking a lot more damage than I was accustomed to earlier in the game. I felt the map was way harder than it needed to be. I was so furious from that encounter that, and I looked at my YouTube channel to confirm this, I actually didn't do another Lonnie solo for 6 months. So at that time, I was getting my Nomad, my Foz, my Infiltrator. I was getting solos with those classes, but didn't play Lonnie for 6 months. I didn't realize it had been that long until I looked. But what got me back into, and this is how it connects to Koty, what got me back into playing Lonnie is, he was doing tougher maps. And I was, learning from his performance in the solos, and also talking to him a lot. Because I did want to get back into playing Lonnie. Playing with Foz got old. I got tired of it. I got tired of long range kills that have no, for lack of a better word, have no heart behind it, because they're easy to achieve and they're low risk. The thing about Lonnie is you have to be like right next to a Warden or right next to a Scion to get the kill done. And that's something I appreciated as a former Lonnie player at that time. But anyway, so learned from Koty, got back into it with an easy Ice Queen run. And different solos help me develop via just talking to Koty and watching Koty. He's actually I'll credit with him for a lot of my solo player development, where it's like he taught me scion behavior, where they always swing with their left arm, because I guess they're always holding the gun with the right arm theoretically. So they're always swinging with their left arm, so you always can dodge their swings because you can predict where they're going to go. As I still, what is it? I don't think anyone has more Lonnie gameplay than I do. I have 18 days in Escape, but even though I have probably the most in probably the world, I still never knew that. I still was never taught that. I still didn't understand that that was a thing. I honestly thought you couldn't get too close to Scions because they're definitely going to, down you or whatever. So that information allowed me to pay attention to Scions more, and I was able to leverage that to also help me, solo the line with all the classes because of the fact that I looked at Scions differently. So I give Koty a lot of credit, and sorry if this intro is a little long. I'll be doing timestamps so you can skip through this, but I give Koty a lot of credit, even outside of Blademaster, because it allowed me to see the game way differently. There's a lot of times on the line, specifically with Scions, where as demolitions, I'll tag a drop shot Scion because I understand the behavior. So understanding enemy behavior, can go a long way to getting some of these solo runs done. So, anywho, I was able to do, the Surge, the Line, and a bunch of other Blademaster maps that a lot of you probably already are aware of because of this connection with Koty. So, for me, it would be a disservice if I were to just pick one Escape Hive, analyze that, and that's it. It would be a disservice to you guys. So I'm going to take you through some Horde, some Escape. Let's see. Yeah, some Horde and some Escape, and you are going to see different instances that you can, leverage when you go play as Blademaster in either mode. So, what is it? This video is going to be 98% Lonnie, and for selfish reasons, it's going to be 2% Nomad. And if you know my channel at all, you'll know why, and you'll see why towards the end of the video. So I'm going to take a short break, just 30 seconds, pause the video, go sub to RelaxingKoty's channel, then come back. Did you sub yet? I'll wait. Because he's a beast. He needs to be subbed to. Too much good information. So, this video is going to work as a sequel, for lack of a better, turn of phrase. This video is going to work as a sequel to all the tutorials Koty has already done. I've created a playlist of videos that I noticed that were tutorials for Blademaster or the game in general, that you can benefit from. Some of the stuff I recover, and some of the stuff I don't cover at all. So watch that playlist first, and then come back to this is my recommendation. Obviously, you do what you want, but my recommendation is watch the playlist first. It's called the RelaxingKoty Experience. And then come back to this, and then you can, watch my analysis of his gameplay and so on and so forth, okay? All right. Go sub, again, if you haven't already. What you'll learn in this video, you'll learn a bunch of stuff, but to keep it very, very simple, skill cards, you'll learn what to use for Horde and Escape. In general, I'm sure he used card stacks that I may not be aware of, but in general, you'll learn, skill cards for Horde and Escape. Bosses, you'll learn how to kill certain bosses. Again, I don't cover every possible scenario to prevent this video from being like 4 hours long, but I do cover some of them. The main principle for, those of you that are a little impatient, the main principle for a lot of these bosses is, to flash them and then use your ultimate, or flash them and then use Breaker Mace. That way they're stunned while you attack, because a lot of them can grab you and instant kill you, i.e. carrier, matriarch. Sometimes you can only approach them if you're in your ultimate, or it's best to do it that way. Something like the Swarmac as an example. So just watch how Koty does some of these situations. Again, I cannot cover every single one, but I can cover enough of them to hopefully help you guys out. So let's get right into the video. So we're going to go over skill cards in the first portion of the video because it's the easiest. I'm already on, the gear section of my Xbox. And I will probably, actually that's not how you do it. And I'll probably not mention it the rest of the time. So his skill cards are similar to my skill cards because, I'm a copycat of him. So what I do for Horde is what he does for Horde. And Koty, if you end up seeing this, if I'm wrong in any way or misspoke, just, timestamp it and write your input. So for Blademaster, and I'm not going to go into extreme detail with these because there's other videos for that, but this is what he runs for Horde. Brawler, Blade Dancer, Energy Surge, Shock Chain, and Thrill the Hunt. Basically damage, health near taps, killing multiple enemies, and also health when you're bleeding enemies. That's the simplest way I can subscribe or, explain those skill cards. So if you want more detail, I have a lot of skill cards on Blademaster or Lonnie's class. Escape, I had on Efficient Executioner for another solo I'm not doing, but give me a second. Okay, Shock Chain, Thrill the Hunt, Venom Blade, Venom Resistance, and Short Range Deflect. That's what he does for the most part. I believe on the line, when he soloed that, the first time, because I think he's done it in different ways, but the first time he did it, I believe he had on Brawler instead of Shock Chain. And I'm not 100% on that, but I believe that. It was either Brawler or Blade Dancer, but he definitely had on these four. So, similar cards to Horde, but not completely the same. So, Shock Chain, Thrill the Hunt, Venom Blade, and you can't get that. It's not a Horde card, obviously, and Venom Resistance. So, kill multiple enemies at once. Healing while you're killing those enemies. Venom Blade, damage, and Venom resistance from damage, and then, obviously damage. So, these are certain stacks you could utilize for your escape runs. Like I specifically said, this is something that's for the line. And if you were to do literally any other map, short range would be the way to go. So that is the skill card portion of this video. And again, I will timestamp, or at least I hopefully should remember, to timestamp everything in this video so you can go to certain sections to reference quickly for your gameplay. So, because this video is probably going to be pretty long. But something I want to, something I also want to address is perks. Now, I'm not going to show you a full frenzy or something to show you what he thinks for perks. I'm actually just going to show you what he said to be super easy for myself. So let me find that real quick. So when it comes down to perks, I even asked him a couple days ago because he's the only person I told I was making this video. I just said, hey, what's your logic behind perks as Blademaster? This is what he said, and this is straight from Koty, so there's no paraphrasing. Damage, resist, and bleed are the most important perks, so I just alternate between them until they are both 6. Then I get bleed to 10. Movement speed and health regen aren't as important, so I just buy them last. Okay, so that's key there. You can pause the video if you want to read it again so you can understand how to play this class. I need them both equally, so I perk each one each time. I have so basically he just explained what alternate means, which I kind of make fun of him for, but so I'll just read it though. I need them both equally, so I perk one each time I have money and switch to the other the next time. So 1-1, then 2-2, and so on. So anyway, and here's another explanation I'm going to read as well. I think doing them both, because what I was telling him is that I go bleed almost exclusively, and then the others. But this is what he says to me. I've adjusted, my gameplay since this conversation, which has only been like 24 hours ago. I think doing them both at the same time is better because bleed gives 32% from thrill the hunt, and the damage resist perk stacks with it. Obviously, the bleed doesn't really need to be 10 ASAP because Brawler and Blade Dancer are doing all the work. It's melee damage doing all the work, and the bleed is what finishes the enemy until you run to the next enemy. The only time the bleed is better than those two cards is when you're fighting a boss on a boss. The bleed is what kills it so fast. So, anyway, you can pause and look at that at your own convenience, but basically alternate the perks. Actually, I already forgot. It kind of escaped me. That's why you would pause the video. You would alternate the perks up to 6, and then you get bleed to 10. Let me double check. That's what he said. Sometimes I have short-term memory. Yes, alternate between the perks, give them both to 6, and then you get to bleed to 10. And after that's probably just up to you. Maybe do damage resistance or health regen or whatever. Once you get them both to 6, damage resistance and bleed, and then the 10. Now I know that I'll do the exact same thing, which will probably help me in most of my Horde matches. That's the thing of this video is, don't just watch the video and do the exact same thing you always did. Try to use this video to elevate your game, which is what I do when I realize a player is better than me. I learn from them to elevate my game as opposed to doing the exact same things I've always done. So try to get that from this video. Make changes when you're watching a tutorial of this nature. Okay, so that is basically the perks part of this video. If you have questions, comment below and let me know. Now we're going to get into the Horde portion of this video. There's different waves. I'm not going to go over a whole game at any point, but I'm going to go over whole waves because there are certain instances in each wave I think that are critical. So we'll see that here in a second. Okay. The scene is set. We are in Master Boss Rush Wave 7. As you can look at the perks, you can see what Koty has done so far. His bleed's to 10, the damage resistance is 6, and his movement speed is to 1. So you can already see that's what has occurred. You can also see that he has a Breaker Mace. This may be self-explanatory, but if you're a Striker or if you're Lonnie, because you get melee / Breaker Mace damage, you should always have a Breaker Mace in Horde. This may be obvious, but that's not really part of this video. That's just a little tidbit that I want to say if you really, really didn't know that. So, Blademaster should always have a Breaker Mace. Breaker Mace gives you damage resistance, which I have already covered in an older video. So when you're holding it as any class, you will be able to take more damage. Depending on how you look at it, you either have more health or more damage resistance. It depends on how you look at it. But anyway, so if you think of all the health cards that I mentioned earlier in this video, when you're holding a Breaker Mace, you have even more health. So it's almost like having like a 6 skill card, at least how I look at it. So let's look at this Wave 7 and see what Koty does. In Boss Rush, you get different bosses like Wardens. You get me being toxic, it looks like. You get Wardens, you get sometimes Matriarch, you get Carrier, things of that nature. And a map like this, where it's Blademaster only, it is nice to avoid flyers because they're easier. It's easier to kill everything else. So we have a double carrier situation, and here's Koty with flashbangs. Here is something I want to touch off right off the bat. Koty, and this is probably a minor thing to most people, but I see it as a major thing because I know myself. Koty, it seems like, always has flashbangs. Always. Whether buying it or maybe recycling from Elite Grenadier, whatever. He always has flashbangs. And here's why that's important. Something like a Carrier or Matriarch, you want to stun them before you approach them. So the Carrier, basically the strategy would be to stun them and, with the flashbang, get behind them and use your ultimate or use Breaker Mace. If you just approach your carrier with just your ultimate, there's a chance you'll survive, but sometimes it'll grab you. But you just gotta be careful with enemies that just grab you and slam your head in. So anyway, so with the carrier, flash, get behind, use your ult. You could even flash and then use your mace. Regardless, do not approach a carrier without using the flashbang. So he uses ultimate behind. There's also a second carrier he has to be mindful of. So basically, when the carrier rotates, that means he's no longer stunned. So you gotta be a little bit smarter. So maybe some shock chain and then go away. So here's another carrier. So basically, in this Blademaster match, we just were spawn killing everything, or I was at least trying to anyway. So see how he's just holding the breaker mace house, even though see me dying. So you get me being toxic and then me being dying all in one clip. Anyway, back to Koty. So basically, breaker mace is always out. Not necessarily always just because he's going to use it, but just the damage resistance. If there's a drone, he's going to take less damage with it out than not. So it is fragile. So if there's a boom shot slam, which that can be dicey, it can knock him out. But he switches off the breaker mace maybe to save it, and then he's going to cap this tap. So something in Horde in general, always cap the taps if you can before the wave ends, but that's minor. So basically from this wave, I would say the main thing is to get in front of the carrier, flash it, and then use your ultimate, and then get behind it and use your ultimate. Okay, that's the main thing from this wave I would recommend for you guys. That was a really bad wave for me. Maybe I should clip this out of the video. Anyway, so coincidentally in my notes, the next wave is actually this one. So as Blademaster, one of the things that makes this class probably top 5 in Horde, and almost mandatory for boss rush, is the fact that it can kill wardens quickly. You can kill smaller enemies very, very quickly. Enemies that aren't flying can die by the Blademaster class if you know what you're doing. So anyway, you also have to be aggressive in nature. So he uses his ultimate, not because it's just this one warden, because he knows there's going to be more enemies. So he's just leveraging his shock chain by shock chaining and then going to the next enemy, and then he's going to get that bleed. So shit's going to spawn as soon as his shock chain's out. So he's got to go away, take out the mace, and do that. So leveraging, again, another thing I want to touch on. And this, I've seen Koty do this. I don't know if I did this before I knew Koty, but basically, when it comes down to shock chain, you really don't want to just stick with one enemy. You want to kind of just like move from enemy to enemy. And, sometimes you can get in trouble with that, with the first enemy maybe not dying and then coming around and like headshotting you. But be mindful of that as well. But you want to like leverage the shock chain because it affects nearby enemies. So if you keep moving, you're likely to get more kills. Hopefully I explained that as, to a way you can understand. So I've utilized a similar strat in other Horde and solos. You just don't want to stick with one enemy until that one enemy dies. You want to just keep moving from enemy to enemy. But again, at the same time, you don't want to move too fast from that first enemy because sometimes you'll come back and that could be a Scion or Multrason will be still alive because you've moved too far away from it. Anyway, let's move on to the second part of this video, or second part of this clip. So, a tricky boss to deal with sometimes is the Matriarch. You've seen videos of me getting grabbed, habitually. So, that's something you got to be mindful of when it comes down to the Matriarch. It can grab you, his or her walk towards you is actually kind of scary, and it should be because it's an instant death and there's no way out of it. So, one thing you'll realize, and you'll notice a consistent pattern with this. One thing you realize when it comes down to Koty's Breaker Mace Slam, and this is something in preparation for this video I have noticed myself. When he slams the Breaker Mace, he's got some distance from these enemies. So there's an instance that I'm not sure if I'm going to go over. There's an instance where he doesn't keep that distance and it costs him. But when you keep that distance, you allow yourself room for error whether it's faulty game mechanics or just the fact that the enemy's about to kill you. So anyway, if you're giving like this type of distance to the matriarch and it starts walking towards you, it's not going to grab you instantly because you're not near it. So if you slam the mace, you'll get the bleed damage, but you'll be safe. Something that I struggle with the matriarch is I thought you had to be much closer than this, because the way the game works is when you slam the mace, you kind of have to look at the matriarch's health bar or your ultimate charge if you don't have it, and that'll dictate if you're doing any damage. It doesn't feel like, as far as like the game mechanics, that you're actually making contact with the matriarch. So that's why I was confused when he was slamming the mace. I was like, is he hitting that guy? But then I saw like this big ult charge, and I'm like, oh, he is. So when you're dealing with bosses, let's say you don't have a flashbang or whatever, and you just want to be safe in general, slam mace at a distance. That will save your life. Well, at least your gear's life, not like your... Anyway, you know what I mean. Anyway. So as you can see, like for instance, I don't see any real hit markers. Maybe that one. Anyway, slam mace, keep a distance, flash, fall back, flash, fall back. Be nowhere near the matriarch because you don't know what it's going to do. Basically safety first when you're dealing with these enemies. When you have high damage resistance, high bleed damage, it kind of goes hand in hand where you're giving out high damage to kill all the enemies, but you also have high health. So you want to be mindful of that you can be aggressive with this class, but by the same token, not too aggressive, because when you're dealing with the carrier matriarch, they're instant grabs and kills. So with these two clips, the main thing you learn from these two clips is flash the bosses and slam the mace or use your ultimate. If you're dealing with the matriarch, you want to use mace at a distance, because at any moment it could do that slow, fast walk towards you and destroy your dream. So since we're watching this video to get wins and improve our gameplay, keep the distance, use the flash grenades. Okay, the scene is set again. So we are wave 6 boss rush on Abyss. And I like to take a slight producer credit, because with Koty, I was like pestering him about, hey, you should do Blademaster only on boss rush over and over again, because I was busy this day and I couldn't play. So I wanted to see a boss rush gameplay even though I wasn't in it. I digress. The point is that this video and this map specifically, I'm going to go on a limb and say, I think Koty has a different opinion, but I want to say that this video is the most difficult 5 Blademaster gameplay you can be a part of. I believe Koty thinks a master on Escape from Kadar is pretty hard, because you get, the enemies in that. I don't have to explain it, but just from stuff that I've done, this is probably the most difficult thing that I've witnessed. Because I've actually tried this myself and it was rough and we didn't get it done. So to see someone else get it done, kudos to you guys. Everyone else a part of this particular game. But anyway, back to Koty. So the scene is set. As you can see, we're wave 6, and we're going to go over wave 6 and, according to my notes, wave 9 from this particular video. So we'll see, different situations as they come up and then go from there. So the damage resistance, as you can see, based off of the message he sent me, it's 6 right now, okay? The bleed is at 7. My guess, if his bleed's at 7, I can't remember specifically because I was watching a lot of his stuff the last couple of days. My guess is if the reason it's not 10 right now is one of 2 reasons. Well, really just one main reason. He kept losing his mace in some fashion, whether it was dying or because of the fact that, no, actually, that'd be the main reason. Dying or, like, trying to get kills with the mace and then just losing it. Koty doesn't really do that. He doesn't really, like, lose his mace through swinging his mace too much. I actually really noticed that a lot. He kind of is always pretty on top of either getting more mace or getting more ammo. So my guess is the fact that he may have died a few times, or maybe the energy simply wasn't there. He didn't have enough tap energy to perk up. So I guess it could be a bunch of different reasons that I'm either forgetting or failing to mention. So maybe I should rewatch this after this so I, have a better understanding. But there's many reasons on why you won't be able to perk up. But the gist of it is he still has some bleed damage. Not as not as high as 10, but he has the damage resistance exactly where he wants it. All right, let's see what we get into. So maybe this is partially true because he is recapping that tap. So doing Blademaster onlys is one of the highest forms of challenge in Gears. I'd recommend it. So yeah, it's more fun than just the traditional gameplay, or unless you already do it, then it's different, I should say. So boss rush on the Abyss, you could get a variety of bosses, and you'll always get wardens almost regardless. So nothing too difficult there. Just a couple of melee combos with the mace, and then right now he's just seeking what he may devour basically. So anyway, it's just one enemy. So breaker mace. I'm trying to explain it. How to explain that? So using a breaker mace. I think it's intuitive, but I feel like I should say it anyway. Using a breaker mace versus using not a breaker mace, I should say, because of the brawler, and the blade dancer, he's gonna get more damage using the breaker mace as opposed to not. I don't know. I feel like that's too obvious to go into detail, but anyway, unless you're low on mace or don't have a mace, you really should be using a mace at all times as Blademaster and Horde. More damage and more damage resistance. Unless you are low on mace, that's just what it is. So right now he's just searching. Then he sees a bunch of enemies and he pops his ult early. So I'll go over that for a split second. So basically, another little hidden feature with Lonnie. I'm not sure this is why he did it, but another little hidden feature with Lonnie, I don't know the exact numbers on it. It's hard to track because ultimates eventually end. But you get damage resistance in your ultimate. It's not immortality like it used to be, but you get damage resistance in your ultimate. So he may not wait right up until he gets close to DR1 to pop his ult. He may pop it early just to make sure he gets there. So that's just a little tidbit there. Okay, so he pops right here. So anyway, that's a little tidbit. So shock chain, move to the next enemy, and then there's not that many enemies here, so he has to fade and get away. So that's another thing. Never, always be moving as Lonnie. Don't stay in one place for too long. Enemies are more easy to converge on if you do. So again, he has the mace out, and that's good damage resistance. So here's another tidbit that I learned from Koty. So when you can slam Mace through covers, and there's a lot of instances and a lot of gameplay that shows you doing this. The value of doing this is immense. You can slam Mace and kill Matriarchs through cover, theoretically, Wardens, you can stun DR1s, and you can retake cover and be out of the line of fire through anything that's a ballistic. So the value in doing that is extraordinary. So as opposed to just being out in the open slamming Mace like you're a Warden, which you're not, take cover in between slams if you can, if it makes sense. So I'm going to run that back because he's actually making contact with all these enemies. So there's a 2-down situation. So this wave is a little dicey. That's probably why it's in this video. It's one of my favorites. So, slam through cover, because you see the Grenadier right there and the DR1, so you can slam, take cover, then he can do it, he doesn't do it again, but he could have. So he almost loses it. Okay, see what I mean? Where he doesn't lose Mace, he switches out of it. So anyway, he has his ultimate. So here's something where I'm not going to say he made a mistake, but it violates the premise of other situations. But anyway, boss rush is interesting, but the gist of it is, with the Matriarch, he kept his distance, right? So sometimes in certain situations, even though the game can kind of screw you if the movement pattern's weird, in certain situations as Blademaster, it's good to just keep your distance or use your ultimate or use flashbangs. There's an instance right here where he doesn't do that. I'm not saying he should have died because this is a weird scion right here, but I'm saying that you can learn from this for like you can learn the concept. The specific situation is not what I'm addressing, it's the concept. Not being too close to an enemy as Blademaster in a situation of this nature may not make sense. In general, obviously, you need to be close to enemies, but this is kind of like a high risk, high reward situation where if he doesn't use his ultimate, which in a 99 out of 100 times you wouldn't anyway, but if you don't use your ultimate on a carrier when you could or whatever, or if you violate that distance, you can get screwed over by the game, or you could just die by something else legitimately. So we'll address this situation as it comes up. So he goes against this pretty much godlike scion, which I always find fascinating when I watch this wave. What is supposed to happen when you're dealing with scions is you're supposed to melee them, they're supposed to be baited, and then they swing with their left arm. This drop shot scion isn't falling for any of that. So when he gets too close, or whatever, you'll see in the video. So anyway, in 100 times out of 100, Koty gets this kill. But for some reason, this Scion's a god, doesn't swing at him, and headshots him. Instantly downs him. So I use that little example, not so much for the situation, but just being careful that these enemies in Horde, they're different in this game. Later waves, they can be even more challenging. So just keep your distance if you can. Not really addressing the Scion specifically for people that don't get that. I'm addressing the concept of if you can keep your distance and slam Mace or use a flashbang, do it. Let's go on to another wave. Okay, in my notes we have Wave 9 we're going to address. Let's see if he perked up anymore. So Wave 9, this is the same match as earlier, so he was able to get the bleed to 10 finally. So maybe the taps didn't get destroyed as often or whatever, so he got the bleed to 10. So he's low on Mace, so he has to be mindful of that. But one swing, he should be able to get it relatively quickly. So I feel like Koty has extremely high situational awareness as well, so that kind of ties into high quality gameplay. So as you can see, if you don't have that Mace out, which he didn't want to lose it probably, it is so easy to go down on late waves and Frenzy, Horde, Boss Rush, whatever. So easy to go down if you don't have that Mace out. So, or if you're not near the tap because he's always running Energy Surge. So just keep that in mind. Again, like I mentioned about situational awareness, he doesn't necessarily want to lose his Mace and need to buy another one. And he is so close to his ultimate, which you're about to see here in a second. So he wants to use that and, in all likelihood, get more Mace from the next Warden. Because in Boss Rush, especially after wave like 6 or 7, Wardens are aplenty. So he's going to get more Mace. That is a foregone conclusion. So let's run that back. Alright, so wave 9, almost at his ultimate. And teammates are going down. It's wave 9 boss rush. It just is what it is. So, anyway. He gets down. He almost has his ult. So, he just needs his teammate to pick him up so he can pop his ult as soon as he gets up. He does. So, approaching a Snatcher is probably the easiest boss as Lonnie or as Blademaster. It's not so much... Oh, I almost overlooked that Kobe. Let me run that back and pause. So it's not so much the fact that it's a big deal to even deal with a Snatcher. It's you have to make sure that he's not, or the Snatcher's not on like a piece of cover, because sometimes it'll feel like you're swinging at air and you're just going to break your shoulder. So one of my tips I should say for the Snatcher specifically is, since you can melee the Snatcher outside of your ultimate, if you... And you know, once you become a high level Blademaster player, you'll be able to just look and tell. But if you're new, or if you're trying to take your game to the next level, try to melee the Snatcher outside of your ultimate. And if you can't do that, do not use your ultimate. Use Mace. That's my advice. So, but once you get to a high level, i.e. RelaxingKoty, you can just look probably and see like, okay, he's on that little piece of cover. He's probably not hittable. Same thing goes with the Swarm Act, which won't be covered in this video. If it's on a certain cover, you can't hit it. Not with Shock Chain. So it's best to, and I've never actually tried this, but it's probably the same principle. So you can try to melee the Swarmak outside of your ultimate, or use Mace, and then use your ultimate if it's actually, you can actually hit it. If you're a Lonnie player, you understand what I mean. But the gist of it is sometimes you are hitting B next to a snatcher and you're not making contact with it. It's just a faulty game mechanic, really. And the workaround is to see if it's on that cover, or check by doing a regular melee if it's on that cover. So one situation, because it's going to happen quick and I don't want you to miss it. In Horde, and this will probably cover too many instances, but when you're in Horde, you can see that your enemy or your teammates getting down in the bottom left, or you can see their plus sign needing a medic or need a revive or whatever. However you want to look at it. RelaxingKoty has high IQ and high situational awareness. So situational awareness is probably the number one most important thing in Escape to be a good player. Number one, better than level 5, level 6 skill cards, better than characters, better than experience. Situational awareness. What do you do when certain situations are brand spanking new, and do you make the right decision in those situations? RelaxingKoty pretty much always makes the right call at the right time relative to what's going on. The right revive, and you'll see that if you watch more of his gameplay, period. So, what you'll see here is he uses his ultimate, and then he noticed, like you can kind of see it on my screen as well, you'll notice that a player you're familiar with, Defensor is down. So, a mechanic in the game, which is, by hook or crook, basically, I don't know if it's supposed to be this way, if your teammate is down and you throw a flashbang, not only do you if your teammate is down and is being executed by like a drone enemy before it's like, done executing or whatever, if you throw a flashbang at this drone enemy, not only does it flash the enemy, but your teammate magically gets up completely. So you revive your teammate from like way cross map in certain instances, and you'll see that here. So Koty is not only thinking about killing a snatcher, but he's also being aware of what's happening around him. And that's a key Blademaster thing, or Horde thing in general. It's not just 1v5, but 1v the Swarm. You got 5 teammates. So being mindful of who's down, who needs whatever, is key to taking your game to that next level. So anyway, you'll see that here in a second. So he's killing the snatcher. Defensor is down. And like I've told you, Koty always has flashbangs. A little bit of Kobe action, which actually connects. And if you look at the kill feed, Defensor meat shields that drone. I don't have Defensor's perspective on it because I actually forgot to ask. But he got up, the drone was flashed, and he meat shielded them. So that basically, in some, depending on how you look at it, could have saved a wave. When it comes down to late wave boss rush, enemies converge quicker, they're more lethal, more health. You can't afford teammates dying, especially this early in the wave, because you may end up dealing with too many wardens, too many grenadiers, too many snatchers. When you're dealing with a lot of enemies at once, regardless of how good you are, it can get overwhelming, and the executions are instant. So you gotta be mindful at least for most of these enemies. So you gotta be mindful that you can't lose a teammate in this context. So the high situational awareness, always having flashbangs, which I mentioned earlier in the video, and also focusing on getting this kill, top high IQ performance just in this little 15-second block. So anyway, it's so beautiful. We're gonna run it back. So he's down, and then we'll move on to later in the wave, obviously. So he's down, pops that ult, kills the snatcher, realized Defensor is down, possibly even getting executed. So yeah, he's getting executed. So a little bit of Kobe action, and defensor check the kill feed, meat shields the drone because he gets up. So high IQ, and he gets down, but since all that shock chain and bleed, oh wow, he gets eaten by the snatcher. Totally forgot, but then he's instantly out of it. So because of the residual effect of shock chain and bleed, you're able to recharge your ult almost instantly, similar to demolitions. So he almost has it again, which he can use for wave 10 or this wave if necessary. So situation where a teammate just gets down, and so a teammate, because you saw by the cog tag, this teammate was dead, and then another teammate just got downed in front of him. Again, situational awareness. A peacemaker is not a scion or a warden, so it's not going to shoot you down and then kill you as soon as it shot you down. So you have like, I don't know, 2-3 seconds, maybe even up to 6, to decide, or before your teammate probably gets executed by that specific peacemaker, I should say. So as opposed to just rushing the peacemaker right after your teammate just got down, you wait till it's safe and then you make the right decision. There's a lot of instances in a lot of Horde matches where I have lost, where somebody would just rush in, a boom shot scion downs 3 of your teammates. Your instinct shouldn't be to rush and survive all 3 of your teammates, because the boom shot scion is still alive. So a 3 down becomes a 4 down because you made the wrong decision. If you can kill the boom shot scion or eliminate the threat first and then save your teammate, that's superior. So again, high situational awareness. You just need to address it differently as it comes up. Not all situations are the same. So all right, we're on that back. So remember, slamming Mace through cover. So we're re-identifying that dynamic, and that's pretty much that. So he's low on Mace again. So teammate gets down. He doesn't want to get down too, and he has his ult because shock chain from earlier. So he uses it here, which is the smart decision here. He doesn't get a ton of kills because it's so late in the wave, but again, the damage resistance, and he can also kill this snatcher while also saving his teammate. So teammates is down again, and that's pretty much it for this wave. So using your ultimate to get out of situations, using your ultimate to obviously recharge to the next ultimate, being smart when it comes down to when to have your mace out. Having high situational awareness when your teammates are down, always having flashbangs. There's a lot that was covered in this particular wave. So I suggest you, maybe rewind it. Maybe as this, because this is, again, going to be very, very thorough tutorial. Maybe as waves come up, as waves come up, as situations arise, maybe don't necessarily watch this whole thing in one day. Take some time to really absorb what you're watching. And then also go to RelaxingKoty's channel and see different videos on what he's doing. And then ask him questions. Don't just watch and say, RelaxingKoty, you're so awesome. That's great that you think that, but let's get you to a stage that you're awesome too. So watch his videos, ask him questions on something that I didn't cover or something that you want, information on from him directly. So that's basically it for this particular wave. So again, rewatch it if you need to, but we're going to go on to the next map. Okay, the scene is set. We are at wave 9 boss rush on exhibit. Let's check his perks. Okay, so perks: damage resistance to 6, bleed to 10, movement speed to 2. I guess he likes movement speed more than health regen. It doesn't really matter for the sake of this video, so let's get right into it. So, like I said, I don't know right now specifically, but breaker mace, damage resistance, flashbangs, perk up, similar stuff that I've already covered earlier. Is what's going on here right now. So just to give a little bit more context, in exhibit, similar to Nexus, we were basically just spawn killing the enemies. So, 2 or 3 people on one side, and then the remaining people were on the other side. just spawn killing enemies as they came up, whether it was Warden, Matriarch, or whatever. So let's get right into it. So also with Exhibit, since you're spawn killing, the tabs are actually easy to keep because nothing ever came up here. So anyway, wasn't a good game for me, but this is about Koty. Anyway, so like I said, if you don't have flashbangs for as the wave start, you know, get them because they're useful. So, all right. So at the beginning of the wave, there's just small drone enemies, but the enforcers don't need to necessarily do a lot of damage before it downs you. So, unfortunately, they both pop through all at the same time. So let's peep that real quick. So this segment right here, it's less about Koty, but just game mechanic. Remember, I told you that having Mace out gives you damage resistance, and using your ult also gives you damage resistance. So that Grenadier, in any other context, because he doesn't have stim, that would have killed him, or at least downed him, I should say. So, but it doesn't. Anyway, so just keep that in mind. Using your ult can save you certain situations. So, again, Warden hits him, really hard or whatever, and he has his Mace out, so he survives. So just keep all that in mind. So Mace out, and that's it. So here's another standpoint where Koty uses flashbangs, saves his teammate from getting instantly executed by the Warden, and the teammate is actually able to get up and use their ultimate due to the fact of that nature, So a lot of things that were covered in a short period of time, and I'm going to run through that all again. So he used, sometimes it takes coordination on these 5 Blademaster runs, but unfortunately they both use their ultimate at the exact same time. But when he comes back around, he's still in his ultimate, and the Grenadier blasts him that in any other situation on Wave 9 Boss Rush would down him. Any other situation. But since he's in his ultimate, it damages him, and he's able to get to the Grenadier and kill him. So, that damage resistance there. Then you come by the fact that I remember earlier in the wave, he bought flashbangs. Seems relatively innocent and minor and inconsequential, but it could be the difference between winning and losing, whether you use 500 energy and flashbangs. Sounds ridiculous, but try not using flashbangs and let me know how it goes. So, anyway, they use their ultimate, and all the big enemies haven't spawned yet, but, TC knows what TC knows. They wait till both their ultimates are out, and then the Wardens come. He brings his Mace back out, which is good for damage and damage resistance. So when the Warden hits him, it doesn't immediately down him. Which, if it immediately downed him, it probably would lead to an instant execution because it's Horde. He has some damage resistance, and the passive as well would help as well, as far as getting hit by a Warden. So, long story short, and then his teammate gets down. I'm not sure exactly how. I didn't watch the kill feed. But his teammate gets down, and he remembers that he has those flashbangs from earlier. So he tosses a flashbang and saves his teammate because, if you're dealing with like a situation of this nature, it's better to have your teammate alive than not because it's just these two over here. So I'm running that all the way back, and then we'll see what he does in real time. Okay, so gets almost down by the Grenadier. Has his ultimate so he doesn't get down. So I believe the Warden just spawned, and he's running away. And he gets hit, melees the passive, and also the Breaker Mace saves him from getting down there. So he doesn't get the passive healing there because, the other guy's a Blademaster who got the kill. So the Warden downs his teammate. So he has flashbangs. He flashes his teammate, saves him, picks him up. And now his teammate has his ult. So very, very high. Again, minor, but, very, very useful in that regard. The only time, Koty loses a Mace, it seems, is if there's a Warden that just recently died. So, anyway, relatively minor, but very, very useful if you don't already know to do this. Again, about distance. Slamming the Mace from a distance, not getting too close to the Matriarch. He's running Energy Surge, which is the correct card, not Shock Shield if you're going to pick one of them. So he's just slamming Mace and destroying the Matriarch from a distance. So, anyway. And then he just taps him a couple times, and that's it. So, a lot learned there. I'm going to recap it real quick. Matriarch, keep a distance. Shock chain, allows you to survive a little longer. Um, or excuse me, I should specify. Using your ultimate gives you that more survivability. When you're dealing with, trying to get damage resistance, whip out that mace. Unless you don't have one, then that's a different situation. But if you have mace, whip it out, especially as Blademaster, because that will allow you to survive situations that you wouldn't survive if you didn't have it. So flashbangs, I cannot stress this enough. Always have flashbangs. If Koty always has flashbangs, that means you should always have flashbangs. It's as simple as that. That will elevate your gameplay and make things way, way easier. It seems simple, but I'm not really sure how many of you guys, utilize this strategy of flashing and buying flashes as you lose them and whatnot. Or if you're like me, you just forget you don't have them, and then you see a carrier and you can't do anything about it. At least nothing's safe. So be mindful of your teammates getting down. That way you can save them for flashbangs, or you can protect yourself with flashbangs. So anyway, let's move on to the last horde clip, I should say, before we get into escape. Okay, the scene is set. We are at wave 10, boss rush on Railline, which is, if you have a really good team, it's relatively easy. But you'll see a lot of the principles come all together. Flashbang, shock chain, breaker mace, keeping a distance from the matriarch, keeping a distance from different enemies. So you'll see all that come together, in my estimation, in this wave 10. So we'll see what RelaxingKoty does. So he has flashbangs. What is it? All the taps, I believe, are capped. It's not really super well, you know. Can't do anything about it if they're not. So anyway, let's see what they get for enemies. So wave 10 boss rush, probably my favorite thing in Horde, I should say. So got a warden there. So one warden, you wouldn't use your ultimate necessarily. He lets his teammate take care of it. So dealing with the matriarch is dicey. So let's go over the early portion of this. So one warden, you wouldn't waste your ultimate on one singular warden as Blademaster in this context. Maybe in Horde or in Escape you do it to make sure you got the mace because you wouldn't spawn with it or you couldn't buy from the fab. But in Horde, you should be able to, because on wave 10, you should have it already. You should have Mace. And if you don't, you probably lost the game anyway. You're probably in the lobby. So, long story short, he realizes his teammate is dealing with a warden, so he doesn't need to necessarily help his teammate with a warden. So he finds another position that he can dominate so he can use his ultimate. He pops it slightly before, which I won't rewind, but he pops it slightly before he's in death range, I would probably say, for lack of a better word, and then pops it and uses it on his DR1. So we'll see how he handles that situation. So anyway, he uses that DR1 and he's trying to leverage the shock chain as best he can. So he gets to an area where there's a lot of enemies, but now he's dealing with the matriarch. He can't get too close. So he uses Mace at a distance. Remember, Mace at a distance. That way, when the matriarch starts walking towards you, you have more room for error. So anyway, he got recharge on his ult again because Blademaster gets his ult super often. So in a situation of this nature, and he's able to kill the matriarch, you want to be mindful of where the matriarch is at all times because it can always just walk up to you and grab you in any context. Shock chain doesn't protect you in that regard. So if you saw there, and a lot was happening, so I'm going to run it back. If you saw there what him and his teammate Ultra were doing, they were shock chaining and then sidestepping the matriarch. They weren't just They weren't tunnel vision on just what they were trying to kill. You have to be mindful of the matriarch because if you're someone who tunnel visions, you're someone who gets grabbed. So you need to be careful when you're in that context. So, excuse me. while they were leveraging enemies they could shock chain, they made sure they weren't getting grabbed. And that shock chain is still hitting the matriarch. So you have to keep that in mind. So for the first matriarch, again, I'll run that all the way back. Um, he did something similar. Mace kept the distance, and then the matriarch ran away. And when it comes down to Blademaster, something that's not a high priority or even relevant to even mention, but I'm going to touch on it, is you can't bleed out a matriarch as of one of the operations. I know in Operation 2 you could because I have videos on it, but later after that, for some reason you couldn't do it. You have to get like one final kill with a ballistic or mace, whatever. So as he's in his ultimate, he stops, takes a breath, and shoots the low health matriarch. So again, situational awareness in that regard also applies to that as well, because you don't want to have a matriarch regen when you don't have to. So anyway, we're running back a little bit. So he's leveraging that first shot chain here. You can't approach a matriarch in not really in Horde period. So keep the mace or keep the distance to slam the mace. And he's getting that ult charge. So you, as I said before, you really don't have to be anywhere near this matriarch. So it seems to get, some damage, some damage on it, I should say, from the mace perspective. So he pops his ult, taps a matriarch because you don't want it to regen. But also, the matriarch just spawns again in front of him. So you don't want to get grabbed, so he dodges it and uses his ult there. So the matriarch charges. I guess his teammate blocked him from getting hit. Again, flashbangs. Cannot stress that enough. They're good when they're good and they're bad when they're bad, but when they work, you always want to have them. So again, keep your distance from the matriarch if you can. So he's almost out of mace. No, he's just out of mace, which again, rare in a situation where the game's over. So Koty loses his mace when there's a bunch of wardens around or when the game's just basically decided. So in a normal situation, if it was like higher, more enemies remaining, he probably would have went and either got, another mace or went to some blue boxes to replenish it. So just keep that in mind. Be mindful of your mace. There are situations where you can't do anything about it, where if you get boom shot sound across the map, it just pretty much gets rid of it instantly. There's nothing you can really do about it, but for most situations, you have control over when to have it out, when not to have it out, when it's low, and replenishing. So anyway, matriarch, flash it, keep the distance, and slam mace, and then that's pretty much it. Not sure how you hit it from that anyway. So that is it for the Horde portion of this video. I'll go over some quick snippets, and then we're going to get into escape. So carry flashbangs, have mace for damage resistance and damage output. Have the right skill cards on, perk up correctly. These are things that you can learn earlier in the part of this video that you can learn to elevate your game. So skill cards, perks, having flashbangs, situational awareness. These are things you can develop over time, which Koty has, and to get it. I haven't covered every single Horde dynamic, which I already addressed. You need to watch his videos and also watch the playlist I have available on my channel as a prequel to this video. Because I don't go over everything here. But what you saw in these Horde clips or situations are things that you can apply to your gameplay. So maybe pause the video, come back to it another day if you've watched it, too many minutes today. But we are going to go into the escape portion of this video, which is going to have less maps because I feel like from a Blademaster standpoint, it's far easier. And also, like I said, for selfish reasons, I'm going to have a Nomad gameplay in there that I want to touch on as well. So take a break maybe, and then stay tuned for the next portion of this video. So, the scene is set. We're Blademaster on the line, also known as Lonnie's class. This is the first time this has ever been done. So, at that time, I don't think... I'm trying to remember. I believe this is Operation 4. Lonnie didn't have melee resistance, or the passive wasn't working correctly. And there wasn't a Blade Dancer yet, I don't believe. in Operation 4? I don't remember, but let's just get right into it. So his skill cards he ran are Ambush, which sometimes works whenever you get a kill period, but he probably wanted his ult more often. I think we may have even talked about this, but anyway. Ambush, Venom Resistance, Shock Chain, Venom Blade, and Throw the Hunt. He could have went Brawler instead of Ambush, but, you know, if he had his ult more often, that could help with the Scion. So, for me, as far as my Blademaster gameplay, this specific solo took my game to the next level. And when you're the first one to do something, it's way harder than for the people that do it after you. Infinitely harder than that. So anyway, I digress. So typical, line stuff. Just you'd walk to the first supply room. So as Blademaster with no melee resistance, something to be mindful of. You don't need to hard walk like this. I know some people like to do it, but you don't need to. And there's going to be no pauses in this video because not a lot's going to be occurring in this video. At least I don't think anyway. I could be wrong. The thing about Scions, especially at that time, is you couldn't really be a bot and get kills. You had to do dodges, and that's part of the reason why I stayed away from this class. You have to do side rolls and jumps. But when I saw this solo, I didn't fully understand what I was watching. I thought he was just rolling in general. So anyway, anytime you hit A in that context, that triggers the Scion. So there's that as well. So anyway, he is going to go back to Venom because Venom resistance, so it's intuitive. And when you're dealing with a Mulcher Scion in this operation, you have to do your best to not get hit. The Throw the Hunt can save you, but not always. So he can get hit, but it's not ideal. If that makes sense. So flashbangs are the way to go. Probably nowadays you probably wouldn't even use flashbangs on a Mulcher Scion, but I can see you use it on an Ice Scion. So melee jump, melee jump. So that is the gist of that. So if you can get in a rhythm of always dodging and doing your best with that, that's the way you want to handle some of these Scions. So melee, remember, they always swing with their left arm. So if they swing left, you can go left. The Ice Scion is the most dangerous, so the fact that he's handling it so well, that is very, very impressive. So anyway, moving on to the next section, which is basically the game changer. So just for a bit, I guess I lied. I said there'd be no pauses. Just for a bit of backstory, when I was a young lad trying to solo, the maps or whatever, I wanted to do Lonnie on the line, right? And at that time, no one had done the line solo, period. But what I was having issues with is I just didn't have the juking capability at that time. So nowadays, you don't need to be good at all to use this class, but back when you didn't have melee resistance, you basically had to be elite or you had to be Cole. That was like the options. So Koty chose to be elite, and because he's an elite player, he is able to think of stuff that I didn't consider when I was doing it. See, when you're Blademaster, and I'll go over this in other videos, but when you're certain classes, you kind of box yourself in to saying like, oh, I'm Blademaster, so I should only melee. And that's where you get yourself into trouble, especially if you use that same logic in solo runs. There is guns on this map that can be useful to kill things at a distance, or stun things at a distance, or stun things when they get close, and you'll see that here shortly. Something that isn't super commonly used is the fact that there is Sniper and M-Bar in this map. M-Bar can stun Scions, and hate to spoil it, that's very, very useful to this solo, and you'll see that here in a second. So he has his ultimate. When a Scion is positioned over there, that drop shot Scion, because it's either he's going to be positioned on the other side or this side. What is it? That means that there's going to be 3 total scions you have to deal with on this section before you make progress. I believe Koty is deciding when to pop that ult. That way, he can get the M-bar and sniper pretty safely. So what he does is he uses his ult on the Ice Scion and the Moltres Scion. He must have did tests before and realized that he's not going to kill all 3 of them if he starts with the drop shot Scion. He either did that or he wanted to get the ult charge from the drop shot Scion. It's not entirely clear what he decided in this context, but what is clear is he definitely wanted that M-bar, which is something when I was trying for the very first time, didn't even consider. So he uses sniper M-bar, which is definitely the way to go here because you can do 6 or 7 active shots on most of these Scions to kill them. Maybe less for like a drop or a Moltres Scion. Anyway, so melee jump and then get out of there. So my guess is he wanted the ult charge. So anyway, you're able to, and I really want to make this about Koty, but you can telegraph drop shot Scion movements. I have a video on this, but again, I don't want to get too off topic here. You can telegraph drop shot Scion movements to where you can really, basically, whether you have melee, bleed or not, you can pretty much kill a drop shot Scion pretty easily. Because you can telegraph when they're going to charge, where they're going to swing, when they're going to shoot, and things of that nature. So, moving on. So, like I said, Scions swing with their left arm, and you side roll to the left to avoid them. It's pretty consistent. You can side roll either direction, but they're definitely going to swing with their left. So, if you can just dance with them, that will be the easiest thing you can do. So, anywho, we're going to go to the stairs where, at least I believe we're going to go to the stairs. Yeah, we're going to go to the stairs where there is going to be 3 Scions. He chose that spawn. Or at least he settled for that spawn. Anyway, he has N-bar, so his strategy here is to active N-bar to stun the Scions, get close, and then do bleed damage. That way he can get safe kills. He gets a collat there. So the most important thing with that is the fact that he is getting safe kills or low risk kills. You want to be, even though you're a melee class, you want to put yourself in situations that is as low risk as possible if you can help it. As you can see, the ult is much shorter in Escape, so you have to be mindful of that. So I don't know if at this time he knew how to telegraph drop shot Scions like that. I really don't remember. It doesn't look like that was like a commonplace yet, but I can tell that he definitely knew about the left arm thing. So also drop shot Scions, again, they lead their shots, so you can make them if you run a certain direction, they'll shoot where they think you're going to be, and then you can make your movements based off of where that shot lands. So if you run a if you run a certain direction, then stop and change directions, you can leave them open for the kill, if that makes sense. So anyway, anything freezing in this map, ice, mulcher, you just gotta be smart. Stunning is the way to go, flash is the way to go, and if you got the ability to jukes, you can do that as well. I'm gonna go on a limb and say he didn't know about the drop shot sound thing at this point, which it's relatively new. Anyway, I don't know if people knew it before my video or not. So this context, you get 3 Scions. One of them for him, one of them's a Mulcher. It depends on what spawn you pick. So like I said, safe kills using N-bar griefing the Scion, and then meleeing him before he gets unstunned. So that's how you dealt. That's the easiest way you can deal with the enemies in this map. So I think he chooses not to use his ult here because of the fact that he has 6 Scions he has to deal with relatively soon after this. So he's got to be smart about when he's going to pop his ult. At least that's That's what I'm thinking he's doing. I think I'd use my ult anyway, because, that's just the type of player I am. I like to use my ult as soon as I get it because the Venom is relatively close. As you can see, no melee resistance at all. Just Thrill is what saved him there because this is an old video. So, flashing, low risk, easy kill. So flashing, stunning, these are ways to kill Silence fairly easy. And that Scion's going to die in Venom, I think? Yes. So, with, well, he paused. I'm going to pause. So, to this point, you want to, if available, use M-Bar to stun Scions. You can approach them. That's probably the, if you don't know how to, side roll really well. Also, you have flashbangs. You can use that to kill Scions or whatever. Okay, that's another thing. You can also use your ultimate when you need to. These are different. There's so many ways to kill these Scions. He also has Sniper. I'm not sure how much he uses that in this game, but Sniper from a long range distance, even if he's Blademaster, can serve a purpose to lower the health or kill Scions. So there's different ways he could have gone about this. The reason I like this solo is because it's a trendsetter for the fact that Scions are not meant to be feared, they're meant to be destroyed. So that's basically one of my reasons why I want to relook at this solo. A lot of things don't, or some things don't necessarily apply anymore. The fact that there's no melee resistance, but the fact that him and I have done it without melee resistance shows you the fact that there are ways to where you can still kill enemies even if you have certain handicaps that go against you or whatever. So let's move on. I don't know how long he's paused this for, but anyway. Comment below at this point. Let me know what you think of the explanation. Let me know what you think of this solo. Let me know what you thought when you saw it for the first time. I know I was amazed when I saw it for the first time. So, in this section, there is 5 Scions. The Scions that are double are either going to be 2 drop or 2 ice. It obviously you would rather if you're a Blademaster, you'd definitely rather to drop than to ice because they have similar health. I think the drop shot sign has more health, but you definitely would rather deal with ice ons because the drop shot's really not going to end the game as from a Blademaster perspective. So there's 3 flashes in that room. So he goes to that room for those. I don't know if he bails back that room necessarily, but anyway, he uses his ult here because, damage resistance, also all the, throw the hunt or whatever, but he can't be there too long. So let me run that back because I feel like there's a lot happening there. So there's 3 flashbangs. The other room's less relevant as Blademaster, but the room with the red boxes has 3 total flashbangs, and he snagged 2 of them. So the reason in this, unless you're trapping the Scions, which you wouldn't do as Blademaster, not necessarily, how do I phrase this? The flashbangs intuitively will help you stun the enemy. So he has his ult, 3 flashbangs at his disposal, and he still has N-bar. So he is loading up a necessary arsenal, if you will, so he can stun these Scions before they, come and kill them for the most part. So being mindful of how to explain this, being mindful of what is available on the escape maps as Blademaster can be useful to leverage for future dynamics. So it just depends on what's going on. So you just have to be mindful of does a area have a flashbang, does it have does it have an M-bar and whatnot, or a sniper. Knowing the escape maps can help you leverage to kill the enemies that you will eventually see. So he knew that there was flashbangs in that room, so he went to go get them. I'm surprised he didn't go back to that room after his ultimate because there would have been another flashbang. But we'll just see how he handles the situation. Okay, so he gets the flashbang and he uses ult immediately. Like I said, the ult in escape is not as long as Horde, so you can't be there forever. And the Ice Ions are too high health Not to mention the buzzkill sign is the equivalent of killing 2 scions, so you can't really be there too long. He uses Imbar griefing for the mulcher, which is a good play, and then he jukes back around the drop shot scion to get out of the venom. And drop shot scion is fairly easy to deal with when it comes down to Blademaster, so it's just him and the drop shot scion. I guess he killed the buzzkill. I must have missed that. So basically, his strategy at that time, because like I said, the drop shot scion video I made is relatively new. His strategy is just to stun and melee, which you can shoot the scion right in his toe, and it stuns him. It's actually kind of silly, but it does work. So he has Imbar. He doesn't have any flashes, which I feel like he could have gotten, unless he still has to. I don't remember. Yeah, he still has to. Never mind. Scratch what I was going to say. So 2 scions here. Probably the only thing better than that would have been 2 drops. But, obviously, it is what it is. So his strategy is to Imbar grief, melee, and then press forward. So I don't know if he's one of the first ones to think of this, but Imbar griefing enemies this is the first video I've seen where someone used, Imbar griefing to help the melee scions. The very first video. I've never seen any one of my friends list do it either. So, just one of those things where some videos that you notice, they can elevate your game, and you just gotta be mindful of what the creator is doing. Whether it's, Defensor, Koty, Beetle, whoever does solos, Moss. Be mindful of what they're doing. If obviously they're the most elite players, but you also have to be asked the appropriate questions so you can be elite. If they're good players, there's nothing to stop you from also being, just as good, really. So anyway, he uses flashbangs here. Maybe he thought the Imbar was being too inefficient. That's my guess, because he didn't use it immediately. But anyway, so he uses Imbar stun, which is, again, such a good idea. The very first time I even noticed it, and he side rolls it, and that's not it, but that's basically the end. Right here, all he needs to do is wait for 9:54 and pop his ult, and that's game. Things to notice in this video: flashbangs are high value. Using Imbar, high value, and also when you have neither, side rolling. I know you don't need to do that now. You can be a bot and just melee and not do any movement, but it's more fun to not take any unnecessary damage if you don't need to. So, anyway, the doors will be completely closed at 10:24. He uses the flashbang to stop them ever so slightly, and then he kills the 3 Mulcher Scions, which means there should be a couple of drop shot signs remaining, but that's the game. They're not going to make it to the pad. So, anyway, virtuoso performance, the very first time, and headshot for good measure. The very first time Blademaster soloed the line, and it happened when Blademaster had no venom resistance. So that's it for the line. I got 2 more videos for you guys, so stay tuned for those. Okay, the scene is set. And this is going to require some backstory. So, as of the recording of this video, there's only been 2 times, that I'm aware of where someone has, without doing the despawn method, someone has soloed, well, sorry, not even 2 times, but 2 gamer tags or 2 people have done it without using the despawn method. And that is myself. I have done it 3 times as of this video. I did it, obviously, the original video, which is by far my best video. And then I did it once with Mac in the same spawn. And then I did it very, very recently as, using the Emil skin with the Pouncer spawn, which was extremely tough. And I'm happy to get it in both spawns finally, since I kept putting it off because I hate Pouncers. But anyway, when it comes down to again, I don't want to talk too much about someone not Cody, but when it comes down to these uh, players that are on YouTube that do solos, it's one thing to uh, be a really good solo player, but it's another thing to have a solo elevate other people's games, and that's something I tried to do. I've seen a couple of my solos, be virtually cut and pasted on like even smaller channels where like another one that you can look up is Gunner on the Gatekeepers. If you don't see my solo as when I did as Clayton or whatever, someone else did it and it looks exactly the same. Which I'm glad to have helped that person get that solo done if that's something he was struggling with. So something I pride myself on is when someone sends me a comment saying like, "Hey, I was able to do the labyrinth because of the solo you did on the labyrinth a year ago or whatever." So that's something I pride myself on. So this solo, because of the fact that he is literally the only person to do it legitimately after I did it. Again, I feel like I'd be doing a disservice to not mention it because this is a solo I've want to talk about for some time. So we, when he was working on it, because I was working on it, because remember it was Iron Man back in those days. I was working on it for about 10 days on and off. Not obviously 24 hours a day for 10 days. Obviously not. Sometimes 6 hours, sometimes 4 hours, sometimes 8 hours. And I kept getting screwed over. My first PVE BS video comes from this map. And if you look at the statistics, if you have time, you go on your Xbox or whatever, you look at the stats and you see that I have like the most amount of kills for this map or whatever. It's because of that paddock run the original time. So it took me 10 days to figure out the strategy to this map. Also, at the same time, trying not to get screwed over in the process. Um, Cody saw that, leveraged some things I did, and then made it his own and did a totally different strategy completely. So this video will touch on how you can see someone do something one way and make it your own, but still use the exact same principles. So one of the principles I do in my original video is, I doubt people that are watching this haven't seen that, so I won't get into that detail. But the gist of it is the Lancer is empty and the Nasher is full. And the Sire spawn is what you want to use because for the simple reason you can chainsaw Sires. Won't even get into skill cards because you should already know that from my other original video because I told you guys way back when. But anyway, so the gist of it is Lancer empty, Nasher full, pull the Venom Fan, chainsaw everything. So when it comes down to, again, this is evidently hard to do because he's the only one that has done it since I did it. So it's obviously a very, very tough solo to do. So, what is it? He empties his Lancer, gets the Nasher, and pulls the fan. Okay. So, at this time, when I was doing it way back when, I thought Terror was the best play. Ever since that solo, I've been using Armored Shot because I think that's a faster way to kill Scions because of the bleed. Not to mention, it leads to a faster solo because Terror causes enemies to run away for so long, but I'm getting off topic. So, anyway, with Paddock, if you're going to solo the end as Paddock, you don't need, with Sire Spawn, you don't need all the rooms. You just need the last one. So Cody's strategy is pretty simple. As soon as he sees something, he's going to chainsaw it. My strategy was to, draw the enemies from the spawn at a certain time. I made a whole video about it, so I'm not going to get into it. So, but he's way more aggressive than I was, at least the first time around. The second two times, or the two times after when the first time I did it, I was far more aggressive because I had more experience with the class. So, anyway, So basically, it's pretty straightforward. You see something, you chainsaw it, and you just make sure you're at a position to where elite drones can't kill you. So anyway, or also Maltrasons can't like mess you up when it comes down to chainsaw flinching, because chainsaw flinching could be the reason between winning and losing, which is unfortunate. So, and if you want to see this video without explanation, I recommend you go to his channel and check it out. Check it out there, I should say. So anyway, way more aggressive. He gets the grenadier, and gotta be careful of the Juby there because he can make you chainsaw flinch. And when he does chainsaw flinch, he uses his terror / fear ability to press forward. So when you are soloing the Endes Paddock and you want to do it legit, it's the best way I can describe it is you want to be in a position to where you're dominating a section of the map. So, and it's relative to your experiences as this class. Where he is at doesn't work for me. You've seen my solos. That's where I choose to. That's my location of where I want to be on that map. So, and you also want to be in a situation where you're not getting hit from a distance. This cover allows him to see the Jubies roll in, see the Grenadiers roll in. If an elite drone comes, see them come in, see the Maltrasons come in. He's at a position to where he can see the enemy shooting without taking any damage. He can also fear enemies that try to flank him as well, because they'll be right above him and within the fear. I don't even know what the word the fear range, I guess, would be it as. So be the best way to explain it. So that is one thing you want to notice why this location is so good. So enemies will come in, you can see them come in, you chainsaw them, and he's so close to the Scions without getting killed by the Scions, so he's able to kill them by leveraging fear leveraging his skill card or leveraging his ultimate. It just depends on the context. That is basically the map. You have to leverage fear in a few different aspects. It just depends on if you have your ult or if you have your. He almost didn't get that kill. And that's why, you see that right there? That's why I use Armor Shot now, because that used to happen before. But back when I did it the first time, I didn't trust myself as much, so I thought I needed the terror to get enemies away from me for 15 seconds. So you just, you get better as a player and you learn new things. So, because he almost doesn't get that kill, and in the end, they're the health regen. So that's why I use Armor Shot instead of Terror. But anyway, he leverages Phase to kill the Maltrason as opposed to the ultimate. So I believe he uses his ultimate much less often than I do, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see how that goes. So there's only 3 total sires. So this is the easier spawn between two, because for one of the main reasons is you're dealing with 3 sires versus a bunch of pouncers. But that's irrelevant right now. So again, why use Armor Shot right there as well. So I probably would have been more aggressive there, but again, I wouldn't even have been in this dynamic, so I can't even say what I would have done. As you can see here, when you're chainsawing, these Juvies aren't about that smoke, so they'll just look at you and not try to kill you. So they'll just and sires are the same way. So this is a good way to leverage fear. So when you're doing this, and this isn't Nomad specific. So you can pretend you're going to chainsaw. The sires will just like pace back and forth, and sometimes if you go towards them, they'll back up. But typically, it's like a side-to-side pacing thing they do. This only works with Jubies and Sires, so this can prevent yourself from getting overrun. So it's something that is very useful if you want to do this map legitimately. So there are a total of I guess the LZ has spawned because he's already killed a Ultra Scion. There's a total of 3 more Ultra Scions he has to deal with. So he doesn't pop his ult there, which again I definitely would have right there, but he may be saving it for emergencies. Something I've noticed when I've analyzed other people's solo runs, that I always use my ult like almost twice as much as a similar class and map. So that just that's a side note. Maybe it's just I'm too ult happy. But here we go. So the elite drone. I'm not sure if he's an LZ elite drone or if he's an elite drone that was in the map already. Okay, these are the LZ elite drones are much more aggressive. So he uses his ult there because you can't really chainsaw an elite drone. Well, no, sorry, I knew your phrase. You really can't. Not on Master. So now he's dealing with a situation where Multrasons, he sees them coming in, and he has to figure out a way to leverage fear. So what he does is uses phase. You got a chainsaw flinch. So, and that's something that will come up if you try to do this map. And I encourage a lot of you, because this isn't like, I know he's the only one to do it legitimately after me, but this isn't like a map that is so I don't know if this is considered the hardest solo. I haven't really thought about it, but this isn't hard enough for me to say like most people can't do it, or not most people. I think a lot more people than me and Cody can do this legitimately. It's probably what I'm trying to say. But well, if you end up doing this solo, but I will definitely upload it on my channel. So that's just an invitation to you guys if you want to, if you care about anything like that, because I definitely want to see it done again legitimately, because this hasn't been done legit outside of when I did it with the Pouncer spawns since, by somebody else, not, me, since Cody did it. So when you're Nomad, period, you can leverage fear constantly. You get your ultimate every 4 executions, and then if you use your ultimate and you're shooting a Scion, that will help you get your ult quicker, or pounce or whatever as well. That'll help your ult, that'll help you get your next ult. So it's just a constant fear cycle that you have to be mindful of when you're trying to be Nomad in general. So, well, really for escape reasons. So when it comes down to it, as long as you're circulating fear appropriately, or circulating things that can be feared appropriately, you're gonna be in pretty good shape. So something that can happen if you choose the Pouncer spawn for some reason, something that can happen is you may run out of enemies you can chainsaw. And something that actually happened in my solo run is I just had 2 or 3 Scions to deal with, and it was just them. So that can be dicey, but I find in the Mulcher spawn, that's less likely to happen. There's always going to be an elite drone you can stun and execute. There's always going to be a Sire or a Juvie or whatever. Also, another thing is don't be so gung-ho maybe to chainsaw. If like 6 Juvies approach you and you chainsaw one of them, you don't need to chainsaw every single Juvie. You may need to save one for when a Mulcher Scion gets close to you, then you can shoot that Juvie after you chainsaw it. Hopefully that makes sense. You want to leverage fear as much as possible. When you get chainsaw flinched by a Grenadier, just, you can still do another version of execution, which is the melee combo, because you can't really get screwed there, at least not as much. He leverages phase here, and he should be able to kill this Multrasound. So yes, 3 Multrasounds as fear. It's actually quite the image. So anyway, so Grenadier coming up behind him, doesn't want to get chainsaw flinched again, so he executes. So like I said, so that Juvie, I probably would have let him go, because I may need him. You don't know how many Juvies are remaining. You don't know how many enemies are remaining. So he has, I believe, 2 more Multra Scions. If you get the hits correct, you can knock him out in 3 hits. But sometimes it's hard to do. I'm not sure where that elite drone is going, but he had something else in mind. Elite drones can be annoying because when they're in fear, they can side roll. So you have to be mindful of that as well. This is definitely an elite drone from the pad, or he wouldn't be as aggressive. You can get screwed over with the Boltok stun, so that can be annoying as well. So anyway, So he has one Moltres, but he has no phase. But since he saved his ult, he's able to just do a couple hits, and that's it. So 3 or 4 hits, and now he just has 3 or 4 elite drones. So the reason I was impressed by this solo before is because, you know, before I did it relatively recently, 2 more times, he was able to kill all the Moltres Scions. I decided to only kill 2 of them because that's how I saw it. I thought that was the best course of action. So the current strategy is to see, when a head's available, and then you can stun it. I guess there's another elite drone right next to it, so he couldn't really get up to him. And that's the annoying part of some of these elite drones that camp in this particular section. If you don't have fear already, they just sit there. They guard that position with their lives. So, and it's very tedious. And again, sometimes can screw you over, not just with Nomad. So that's why when I did it, I looped around and popped my fear. That way I had to jump on him when I got to this section, and I wasn't in this dynamic. But Koty, again, high situational awareness, so he was able to make the right decision as it came up. So 3 elite drones to deal with. The doors close, I believe, at 5:40 if you pull the fan. So he just has to be careful here. As long as he can get 1 Boltox done, that's game. And that's the game. That's the play here. You got him, execute. I don't know where the other elite drone went, but maybe Koty does. Oh, there he is. So see that side roll in fear. So that's super annoying. So you can't worry about him. He has to worry about these guys. So, and I don't think that elite drone ends up being a problem the rest of the game. There's also, you can see the claw a little bit. There's an elite drone that's glitched on the pads. That's actually really annoying. Well, I didn't have to deal with it myself. So anyway, the elite drone not sure why. I don't know how that happens anyway. He's stuck there, execute, and the doors are closing because it is 5:49. So all he has to do is chainsaw everything he sees, and she should be able to stun the Moltres, which is very important because you really don't want to deal with a Moltres on the pad. Everything else can be chainsawed and it's no big deal, but a Moltres, you rather him just continuously be stunned, which you get a better visual representation of than my solo, and then you can just either use fear on the grenadiers or just chainsaw them as well. So cycling fear over and over again, and that is pretty much it. Nomad on the end. This is something I've wanted to go over for a while. Looks like that was a fear or not, honestly, but it is what it is. So one of the things, and I recommend also you guys check it out without my commentary. One of the things to touch on when it comes down to being Nomad and Escape, because that's probably the best class, just given pretty much every single one of his cards are good. I think I said his best class. I meant the best escape class is what I meant to say. I said the wrong thing. One thing you gotta understand is you get your ult super often, and when you're using Menace, you get it more often than super often. So super often. So don't be shy about using your fear, and if you are shy about using your fear, you may not necessarily need to run Menace. You may be able to get away with something else because you're going to be, since your focus will be leveraging phase. Now, if you're doing Paddock on the end, I think Menace is mandatory. I think the only optional card is Terror, and you'd swap that for Armored Shot. So that's basically it for Nomad on the end. Probably one of my favorite videos, if not my favorite solo that's not mine. So that's pretty much it, guys. And we're going to get into the final solo of the RelaxingKoty experience. Okay, everyone, the scene is set. This is Lonnie / Blademaster on the Hunters. He did this in Operation 3, I believe. It was some time ago, so there's different things that don't apply now to then. But what's very instructional about this particular Hunter's video is he doesn't get grabbed by a single sire. When I did this, I forget when, but when I did this a while ago as well, I was okay with getting grabbed by sires because I wanted them to bleed out. Because at that time, I thought the best way to handle sires is to melee them, let them grab you, and then bleed out. Because if you dodge incorrectly at that time, the sire was definitely going to down you. So, and obviously in a solo run, that means you gotta go back to the lobby, especially when there was Iron Man. So, I'm not going to explain this solo because it's pretty self-explanatory. I want you just to observe his movement, how he doesn't get grabbed by a single sire. That's the big key here. So, and that'll be it from my standpoint as far as explaining. Hopefully you enjoyed the RelaxingKoty experience, and thanks for listening, and enjoy Lonnie / Blademaster on the Hunters by RelaxingKoty.
My bomb is in place. Ah, shit. Come on! You got a raven to catch. Good one. Reload! Reject mark! Multiple contacts! We're running out of time! Keep dreaming! Bomb's about to blow! Venom's released! Let's not get caught up in it! Sire, marked! Reloading! Got it. Here, take a look! Supplies! Watch it, sire! Don't know about you, but I'd rather die fighting than choking on venom! That reject is scrap! Sire! Another dead sire! Keep them coming! Sire! Another notch on the belt! Target down! Don't know. Charged up! I can go all day! Another drone. Die! Safe room! It's open. Okay, we're all in.
Decontamination before entering the safe room is mandatory.
Feel better already.
Okay, I can see your signal. You're close to the surface. I'll meet you outside.
Should be some supplies around here. Scout the area.
Warning, warning.
Here we go.
Contamination detected. Doors opening in 3, 2, 1.
Finally, back to it. Now that was fun! Got eyes on a drone! Years of training. Spotted a sire! I'm reloading! Wow! I'm reloading! Sire, march! Another dead sire! Another down! Sire terminated! Cut them down! One by fucking one! Charged up! Sire! Cover me! Reloading! Gotta fight here! All dead. Looks like we're clear. Like the good old days! That's a dead drone! They got. Drone is done. Ha! That's all of them. Time to extraction just up ahead. Drone eliminated! Good work, Chief! Let's get out of here!